Morning! How are you all doing today? We're out fishing again. It's a lovely day. Got the kettle on. The birds are chirping. Just need the pike to start biting. Let's see how we get on today. Got the rods in. Big popped up rainbow trout on this side. Pollen, mackerel, smelt. Again, too ledgered, too hard in the bottom. The further you go that way, the shallower it gets. The further you go that way, the deeper it gets. The far bank is a deep bank. This place gets fished a few times because there's holes drilled in the wooden boards, so somebody's obviously got their bank stick set up and they've just put some holes in the board so the bank sticks stay in them. I use the stage stands. Stage stands are pretty good. It's just screwed down. But I'm going to finish my cup of coffee. I'm going to have my cigar. And I'm going to relax. That's what fishing's all about. Cheers.
20 minutes later.
This is a Nicaraguan cigar. I was in Asda in Oma shopping and I said, you know, let's see if they have any cigars, because sometimes they have cigars. And they had some, you had the usual, you know, Henry Walthams and stuff you could buy anywhere. But there's a couple of these. Nicaraguan. Normally I smoke Cuban cigars, but I'm not some sort of only Cuban cigars guy. When I was on my honeymoon in Hawaii, I brought back some Hawaiian cigars, and they were actually quite nice. You know, you got a lovely, nice peppery smoke. It was nice. Now I realise those of you that are watching this that don't smoke cigars will find this incredibly boring. But it's just one of those little hobbies that I have. I keep meaning to buy a humidor and build up a little collection. I am going to have to get a really nice one, a really nice cigar. Spend a bit of money and buy a decent one for jam. They've called the bump, the baby bump jam. My wife had an app on her phone saying, you know, your baby this week is the size of this and this. And they always tended to use fruits. So we just nicknamed it jam. And it stuck. Until obviously it pops out and we give it a proper name. I keep saying it and it feels like really, really like horrible scent. But we're deliberately not finding out what the sex is. You know, it'll be a surprise when it comes. I'll be honest, I don't care what sex it is. As long as it's healthy, and as long as Mrs. S comes through it with no poor algae effects, that's all I care about. But I am looking forward to being a dad. Regardless if it's a little boy or a little girl, it'll be fishing, it'll be doing all the things that I do. I'm not some sort of like a hippie that believes you have to get back to nature. And I'm not some sort of crazy men's rights advocate, activist. You know these guys that like refuse to get married, they have a general poor attitude about the female of the species. And again, I can understand them. I can understand where they're coming from. I can understand why they'd be annoyed. Look, everyone that's ever been in a relationship and that relationship's went south, they're going to understand that, you know, shit happens. I mean, I've mentioned before, I was in a relationship with a woman, put me in quite a lot of debt when I was away in Afghanistan, or Iraq, when I was away in Iraq. I came home and there was an absolute shitstorm to deal with. You know, it was one of the lowest points in my life. And at that point, I could quite happily sit and say, nah, no time, no more. Women are going to be there for sport. But eventually, you kind of forget the bad, you get over it, as you do, as everyone does. You have to get over life, you can't let it lie down and beat you. Get over it. And now I'm with someone that has my back. That feels kind of good. You know what this cigar needs? This cigar needs another cup of coffee. It isn't actually that bad for a Nicaraguan cigar. It's actually alright. Okay, it's no Cohiba, but it's alright. It's not awful. I'll tell you a story about an awful cigar. I was in Afghanistan with work, with the Air Force, and there was I was working in the headquarters in a place, a little shithole of a place, but the headquarters bay I was working in, it was joint, so you'd have like the British guys there, the Americans, the Dutch, the Canadians, you know, so it was good to see like the different nationalities there. You kind of got a bit of a laugh. This big American guy, now, you know, I'm a big guy. I'm 6'2", probably now I'm about 22 stone. At the time I was in the forces, I never failed the fitness test. I always passed the fitness tests, even being a fat bastard. And as I progressed, being a crippled fat bastard, I still passed the fitness tests. Took a bit of pride in that. However, this guy was huge, he made me look small. And he came out and he was very fond of the British guys, and he had a box of American cigars. And he went round to people that were in the headquarters with us and opened this box of cigars and says, "Take a cigar, boys," and everything. We all took a cigar. They were just normal cigars, they weren't wrapped, they weren't in tubes, they were just normal cigars. And I went out to the smoking area. I thought, well, I'll just take 10 minutes. That was actually quite nice. It was about 8 inches. Probably a Churchill sized cigar. Churchill, that's the thickness of it. And I thought, you know, lunch is coming up. I've got like some time. I'll sit and have a cigar. I'll sit and have a smoke. Just having the smoke. I lit it up. And the first drag, with a cigar you don't take it into your lungs, you take it to the back of your throat and then you breathe it out. You don't take it into the lung, that's not how you smoke a cigar. The first taste, there wasn't really any sort of taste. And I thought, okay, maybe it's just working its through, blah blah blah, maybe it's a cigar that's a bit older. And the second drag, it was like having my mouth scoured with sandpaper. And I coughed a bit and I stubbed the cigar out. That was it for me. And I very quickly went back to my office. I went back to my office because there was like a fridge of water there, and it was like somebody had sandpapered your throat. It was dry as fuck. So I was drinking water. There's people come up to me and they're like, "Did you taste that cigar? Blah blah blah." And I was like, "Yeah, it's like smoking sandpaper." Everybody that smoked it all said they were awful, truly awful. But I felt dead sorry for one of the junior officers there, because he smoked his whilst chatting to the American guy that gave him the cigars, and the American guy was like laser beam focused on him, watching them smoke that, and every other question was, "Are you enjoying the smoke, boy? That's a good smoke, good American smoke." And it's like, and as soon as the guy was gone, this guy was like fucking green and puking up. Bad cigars. I've never understood why the Americans have such a thing with Cuba. I can understand the whole communism thing and all that sort of stuff. I don't like the communists. But, you know, we're at peace now. Castro's gone. Cuba's like a liberated, well, it's meant to be liberated, meant to be social, meant to be free. So it's about time we helped out a poor nation and bought some Cuban cigars. If you're out there and you're watching this video and you too quite enjoy Cuban cigars, then drop me a comment in the below. Let me know what your favourite cigars and any recommendations for a cigar for the birth of baby Scobie. Because I'm going to need cigars for that. And whiskey. Lots of whiskey. But I'm going to make another cup of coffee and finish this.
Later.
Doing a spot of drifter fishing today. Got a perfect wind for it. It's just carrying nice and slow behind me. You can see there's the drifter float. I just literally cast it out. I've got a nice big roach on it. Let's talk about drifter fishing, shall we? Let's take a step back here so you can see the rod. Right, how I fish with the drifter float. Now, this isn't how everybody does it. This is just how I do it. I have one bank stick, I have the rod tip up in the air, and I have the butt of the rod on the ground. The bail arm is open. What I'll do, I'll let it drift maybe 10, 15, 20 feet. I'll close the bail arm and put the bait runner on. Let it sit there. Give it 20 minutes, give it half an hour at the most, and then open the bail arm and let it move another 10 or 15 or 20 feet, and then put the bail arm closed again. And that way you're covering a lot of water. You're just letting the bait drift down, it spends a bit of time in the water, and then it moves on. It's a very proactive way of fishing. It's also a very good way of searching out areas of the water. Now, I'll be honest, drifter float fishing is one of my favourite methods of fishing. You don't very often get to do it here because at Sod's Law you'll arrive somewhere and the wind will be in your face, or it'll be going the wrong direction, or you'll have a day that's perfect and you'll be destroyed and tortured by morons on a jet ski. But we'll just let that bait do its thing. It's set to drift, and we'll just have to keep those fingers crossed that it's lucky. There's something out there fancies a nice roach. Beautiful area that I'm in. Absolutely beautiful. It gives it to me like this all day. Light breeze. Okay, there's going to be some drizzle, but that's again Northern Ireland. There's always going to be drizzle. So there you go, guys. The drifter float. If you've any questions, then drop me a comment below, and I'll happily go through it more in depth with you. Okay?
Just then.
Well, the drifter float worked. I had a run. I threw the hooks. It wasn't a big, it was only a little jack. But the drifter float worked. I got about 40, maybe 45 meters of line out, and the float just went. I was standing right beside the road too. Excuse me. Unfortunately, the wind's now changed. It's going this way for a little bit, but then when it gets round the other side of the bay, it's hacking in that way. So it's kind of going like this. So I'm not really getting a big drift out of it, but it is what it is. It's worked. It was a little jack on a roach. So there's pike here. Let's just hope we get something in the unhooking mass so I can show you it. But apart from that, nothing else has happened. Let's talk a wee bit more about drifter float fishing. I'm going to go through my drifter float setup. I'm going to start with the hook end and then work back. So to start off, we have a 15-inch 45-pound AFW bleeding leader trace. You've seen me make traces before. This is exactly the same as that. I've size 2 older hooks on. It's got a clip, so when you do catch a fish, you can just unclip. There you go. And the whole clip is kept on by a little silicone sleeve. So once the silicone sleeve is on, you know, that's it, secured, it's not moving anywhere. This is then to a ball bearing swivel. Ball bearing swivels are important because the pike can kind of twist when they're fighting. You don't want twist, you want it kind of be smooth, so ball bearing swivels are a must. Then we have a 1.5 ounce Fox square inline lead that's fixed to the bottom of the up trace. You'll notice that with the up trace, if I start like that and I pull the bait trace alongside the up trace, we come to there and there's still loads of more space. So if you're fishing with a live bait and the live bait swam up in the water, even if it got round the up trace, there's still wire there. Wire is important. Do not use fluorocarbons. Wire. Pike will not bite through wire. Top of the bait trace, again, it's just clipped to the up trace, and then there's another ball bearing swivel. Now we have the drifter float itself. So just move this rod back a bit. Here we have a drifter float. Now, when you're going to cast this out, there's a little eye on a bit of, I don't know if you can see that there, but that fits into this little bit of a silicone sleeve at the top. So that when you cast out, the controller is stuck to the side of the float. The controller keeps the line away from your float. It stops the line wrapping around the main body of your drifter float. When it hits the water, the little eye pops out and your float's able to do its own thing. And because it's on a swivel here, it can spin as much as it likes and it's not going to cause you any tangles. The controller keeps your main line away from your drifter float. I just have some beads. There's a bead, there's a little metal eye that I showed you, and there's another bead. I'll set this back on it. The great thing about drifter floats, Eddie Turner makes them, Fox makes them. This is a Fox one purely because it was one to hand. You can add extra bodies to it to make it more buoyant. So if you're fishing with a big bait, you can add extra bodies, therefore it's more buoyant. Buoyancy is good. Alright, now let's talk about the rod itself. This, I'm trying not to catch anything here. This is a 12'6", 3 1/4 pound Gray's drifter rod. Gray's first entry into pike angling was their Prodigy rods. Beautiful rods. Anyone that has fished with them will always say that they are a beautiful, beautiful rod. I have 3 of them, Gray's Prowler deadbait rods, or Prodigy deadbait rods, and this is the Prodigy drifter rod. Again, after this, Gray's then made the Prowler rods. Again, perfectly nice rods. I've got a couple of them, but for the finish on the Prodigy rod was outstanding. Don't know why they stopped making the Prodigy gear, but you can't really get hold of it anymore. So here we have the rod. Then we have a Super Bait Runner XT-EA 10,000, and it is loaded with a 65-pound Power Pro braid. When you're float fishing, any float fishing, doesn't matter if it's drifter, float or anything, always use braid. Braid floats on the surface so that when the pike takes the bait, the float goes away. You can wind down, the line's kind of sitting on the top of the water. Mono sinks, so if you're drifting with mono, then the chances are the mono will sink to the bottom and get caught in weeds or crap. So you end up kind of fighting sinking mono. You can use grease on your line, but it's just a mess. The old days when you didn't have braid, it was like a plug that went into the butt eye, and it was lined with Vaseline or grease, and it was rotten. Your reels were stinking with it. It was just a mess. On the main line, you'll see that there's 2 little rubber stops. These set the depth that you want, and then you just put your bait on and you fling it out. I've had this rod, I think I got it in 2005, I think. Don't quote me on that. It's around about that sort of time frame, and it's been thoroughly used and abused. Cracking rod. The only issue that I had with it is I had a bit of an issue where there was a mouse problem, and the mouse kind of chewed a bit of the cork handle, but it doesn't affect the rod. It doesn't stop me fishing with it. I love this rod. Before I got the Dave Lum rods, I used Gray's Prodigy and Prowler rods, and I never had a problem with either of them. Just going to lower this down a bit and bring it over. There we go. I tend to do, when I'm fishing, I like to go above and beyond. I want to have tackle that is as strong as I can get away with. I don't want to mess around. I don't want to have, I don't want to use light tackle for pike fishing. I would always advise people, if you're going to go pike fishing, to use strong gear. We're at a time of year now where the pike are they're thinking about going into the spawn here. The water's not warm enough yet for them to spawn on the Erne. You want to get those pike in as quick as possible. I despair when I see these people talking about, oh, I played the pike for 45 minutes. It's like magic. You've played it till it's dead. Your gear should be strong enough to bully that fish and get that fish into the net and then unhooked, so that when you release it, it's got enough strength, it's got enough energy to fucking go away and do the rest of its stuff. Again, that's another reason why I have retention slings. If it has like a big fish and it has been a bit of a scrap, I'll let it sit in the retention sling for 5 minutes, just so I'm 100% sure that fish is safe to go back. There is occasions where if you've stressed the fish out and you let it go back, it'll bolt off, and then 5 minutes later you'll see it just belly up, and it'll be belly up, out of reach, so it's dead. It's just going to be sitting upside down and not going to have a good day. You just want to look after your catch. It is what it is. Anyway, this is the drifter float. This is how I fish with the drifter float. It's worked this morning. There's been a jack on it, although it shook the hooks. So much for my idea of having strong barbed hooks. But this is what I use for drifter fishing. Again, I'm not saying that is the 100% right way to do shit. That's how I do it. It works for me, so rock and roll. Apart from that, I'm going to get a cup of coffee now because it's kind of cold. So, see you in a minute. Today's cooking with Scobes. It's the humble bacon sandwich. Round bacon sandwiches. still only the one run. The wind's changed direction a couple of times, so I'm only I'll put the drifter rod away. There's times it's going perfectly down there, then it stops, and then it comes towards me this direction. So it just makes fishing kind of hard, you know. Gotta love a bacon sandwich and a cup of coffee. It's all been very quiet since that one fish on the drifter rod. Still, the view isn't bad. That's one thing about Fermanagh. Well, Fermanagh, Northern Ireland. You know, we're blessed with excellent natural scenery. You know, gotta love the natural scenery here. What time is it? Right. 20 to 5. I think I'll stay at about 6 o'clock. See what the place is doing, see if there's anything happening. I've enjoyed my day. I always enjoy getting out. Even if there isn't anything in the unhooking cradle to show you guys, still enjoy getting out. Can you imagine this place if it was unmolested? Can you imagine Lough Erne if the hydro power plant at Ballyshannon wasn't there, and it was returned back to the Killisandra Falls, like how it was in the 50s. Ballyshannon hydroelectric dam is economically unviable, apparently. It costs more to repair it every year and keep it up running than what it does to fix it. Not fix it, as in what the electricity it produces. So, from talking to someone that actually works there, he gets the feeling that it's just been left to, well, to fall apart, fall in on itself. When they built the dam on the Killisandra Falls at Ballyshannon, they were meant to build a fish pass. That meant all the migratory species got into the Erne system, and they didn't. They built the dam and then went to the fish pass, so the migratory species stopped. No salmon, no sea trout, no eels, no lamprey. When I was a little kid, I talked to my granddad, who showed me pictures of him fishing for salmon on the Lough Erne. These are old black and white photographs, and they had huge salmon. Shame. It's an absolute shame. Not that I'm a salmon angler, but what I am is a naturalist. I'm into the aquatic environment. This system, with a healthy run of migratory species, benefits everything in the system. The salmon continue to spawn, the sea trout continue to spawn, lamprey, eels, all continue their natural cycle. Of course, the pike get bigger, and that's what interests me personally, but strange times, I guess. There is a campaign to remove hydroelectric dams. I'd love to see it. Would absolutely love to see it. Even if the chances of the Erne returning to a shadow of its former glories would happen long after I'm dead. I would love to see it simply because when my children start to take up angling, maybe in their lifetime, that they'll have a photograph of a 20-pound Lough Erne salmon on their lap. But we can but hope.
Eventually.
Well, that's it. I'm going to wind in these the two big rods. And make a slow pack up. And then drive home. That little Gray's Prowler pop-up stick is enough to pop up this big trout. What do you see? Nope, it's not. I wonder what happened there. It was popped up this morning. Well, don't I look like an asshole? Well, that is that. The only newest thing that I have to say to you guys is that I have a new sexy outro for the channel. Mr. Mark Muir has helped me out again for the channel. He's the guy that done the introduction for the channel. He's now sorted me out a outro, which you're going to see in about a few minutes. I've got asked a few times if I could put people in touch with Mark, because they want intros and stuff like that done themselves. So if you're looking for an introduction to your channel, then give me a shout and I will pass you through to Mark and he will be able to sort you out. He's a good guy. Massive Rangers supporter, so good guy. It shouldn't be the end of pike fishing season. And then we'll have to start fishing for tench. Woohoo! Tench! Anyway guys and girls, there is females that watch the channel. Hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry there wasn't like a nice big 30-pound pike in the pictures to show you. But can't have everything. Until the next time guys, tight lines.